And honored to introduce our next keynote speaker, who is none other than Representative Lindsay Sabadosa. She is the first woman to hold her seat as the representative of the 1st Hampshire District in Massachusetts, and she is constantly fighting for progressive policy in areas ranging from healthcare to social equity. So thank you so much for joining us, Representative Sabadosa.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today. And it was a pleasure to catch a little bit of that last speech. I'm now thinking I should rewrite some of the things that I said to better meld the two together. But the truth is, I have spent a lot of time over the last week putting off writing what I wanted to say to you today. But I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted you to take away from today, even if those thoughts didn't make it onto paper until a few hours ago. I know that sometimes at events like this, and I've been to a few, it feels like a lot of people talk and it can be hard to remember what's been said at the end of the day. But it is my hope that when you log off today's Zoom, you'll remember at least one piece of advice from today. And I give this advice a little bit because I have to give it to myself on a daily basis. And that advice is to be brave. So I don't know about you, but I love children's books. And when I think back, a lot of those books contained the advice that I'm giving you about bravery. So there was Madeline, who went to the zoo and said boo to the scary tiger to show that she isn't afraid. That was the first example I could think of when I thought of children's books. And then there's the great book, The Thunder Cake, where there's the little girl who musters up the courage to bake a thunder cake so that she can turn something that's scary to her into a celebration. But then there are books about real life kids who had to be brave. So I'm thinking of examples like Ruby Bridges and Malala, who had to stand up to do what was right for themselves, but also change the world as they did that. And I hope that you can think of something that you read as a child that conveyed that message. And I hope that you can think of songs and books and movies in your life right now that remind you to be courageous every single day, because it's a message you really can't hear enough. And the reason that I hope that is because that message starts to get a little bit less strong as you get older. And it's something that you do have to remember and carry with you. In a few years, you're going to graduate from high school or college, and it's sometimes harder to remember to be brave. There are going to be fewer people around reminding you every day. And in fact, there are going to be people who instead tell you to settle down, go with the flow, just fit in, things are great as they are, don't rock the boat, be happy, things aren't that bad. You'll hear it every day. The messages are really strong. But I got a little bit off track there. It's going to be harder because of all that. And in fact, the part that is going to be the hardest and the part that you don't see in books is that being brave is really, really terrifying a lot of the time. It's really uncomfortable. It's not the easy path. It doesn't always win you a lot of friends. And sometimes, if you're doing it right, you're going to make some people angry. So I ran for the office of state representative about 3 years ago, and it involved a lot of scary decisions. It meant having my picture taken, and I hate having my picture taken ever since I was little. Never liked the way I looked in a picture. And then I had to put it on a card, which I then walked around and handed out to people as I asked them to vote for me. Happened. Can you hear me still? Okay,
Yes,
thank you. I'm sorry, the whole thing just disappeared. Not sure what happened. Um, let's see what's going on. Okay. Apologies. I'm not sure what technological glitch just happened. So let's see. We were talking about palm cards. So you take these palm cards. Thank you for the people in the chat who are saying I can still hear you. Thank you. Um, so you take these palm cards and you knock on people's doors. And in addition to having my face on these palm cards, I had to talk about issues that I believed in. So I had to go up to people and tell them my truth, which is that I believe that people who are undocumented have the right to drive. I believe in bodily autonomy, and therefore I believe in choice, because I don't think that other people should tell others what they should do with their bodies. I talk to people about healthcare because I believe that healthcare should be affordable and that no one should go into bankruptcy because they don't have the ability to pay for healthcare. And sometimes the truth is that people were really mean. Sometimes you get a pit in your stomach as you walk up to a door because you can sort of tell already that this person is maybe not going to agree with you. And sometimes people tell you things that are extremely hurtful and xenophobic. Sometimes they slam the door. Sometimes they tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. My favorite was that I was too young, and that I had to wait my turn. I heard that a lot. One person told me when I knocked on his door that I wasn't wearing blue that day, and therefore I did not look like the person on the card, and how was he to know who I was if I wasn't dressed in blue? Another man told me that he was only going to vote for me if I would go out dancing with him. I did not go out dancing with him. And then there's social media. So then you hear the people, I am laughing at the comments. Then you hear the people on social media who feel like nobody reads it and like you're not a real person, and they can say all kinds of really, really rude things. And sometimes those really rude things on social media move into real life and they're said in an ice cream store in front of your daughter. Now, when I look back, it was hard, and I had to remind myself every day to be brave. But I don't even think with all of that, I had even yet understood what it meant to be brave, because yes, I was putting myself out there, but I was just dealing with people and how they were treating me. I was uncomfortable, but mostly I believed in myself. And that's so fundamental, to believe in yourself. I had that self confidence that made me feel like I was doing the right thing. I knew in my gut I was doing the right thing. And so my goal was really to just convince people to feel that same way. But all that changes after an election. And it became really clear that while it may require bravery to run for office, the word gets redefined once you're in office. A lot of politicians have a reputation for sort of talking out of both sides of their mouth. And they'll say things just to kind of get support and to sort of not rock the boat. They don't want to go too far out on a limb, and they don't really want to take a stand because it's safer. You don't make people mad that way if you're not really being courageous in what you do. And it's way easier to win re-election if you don't have people who are angry at you. Now, I'm certainly not encouraging anyone here to just make people angry for the sake of making people angry. But I do think, and I'm going to steal the words from Congressman John Lewis, that stirring up a whole lot of good trouble is something that we should really be focusing on. And I'm lucky because I live in a place that reminds me of what good trouble looks like every single day. I love my city. I live in Northampton, but I live in a neighborhood called Florence. And in the 19th century, Florence was home to the Northampton Association of Education and Industry, which was a utopian community. I'm not kidding. This utopian community was founded by abolitionists, people who believed in gender equity, economic equity, and they created a silk mill because they did not want to have to buy cotton from states that had slavery. They grew beets because they didn't want to have to import sugarcane. And so this community also became part of the Underground Railroad. And we had amazing people who moved here, like David Ruggles. Now, I don't know if you know who David Ruggles is because he only lived to about the age of 40, but he helped free 600 people on the Underground Railroad. Attempted kidnappings, lynchings, his bookstore was burned down, but he came here to recover and to recuperate. Sojourner Truth also moved to Northampton to be part of this utopian community. And it was when she was here that she met someone named Olive Gilbert, who helped her write her memoir that is now so famous. She dictated it to her. William Lloyd Garrison published it, and it earned her the money to then buy her house, which is right up the road on Park Street. So I get the super cool privilege of walking through my neighborhood and seeing the homes and the places where all of these people, who I think just define the word brave, lived. And I remember that when they were alive, they were some of the most hated people in the world. They were vilified by the press. They were treated like criminals, but they persisted. And they persisted because they knew deep down in their gut that they were doing the right thing. And they were willing to be brave so that they could make life better for other people. And the longer I do this job, the more I realize that the bravery we read about in children's books, that bravery where we just overcome our own fears, is not the real bravery, the one that you only find in the deepest corner of your soul, that I hope you will never forget you have, because I promise you that you have it, and that you will use constantly your entire lives to make things better, not just for you, but for everybody. I fear, though, that when I am very old, I will look back and I will never have done the amazing things that people like David Ruggles and Sojourner Truth did, because let's face it, those are once in a century folks. But I'm still going to do my part. So earlier this week, I filed a bill about returning to school during the pandemic. And the legislation is, it's pretty simple. It says that every community in the state should be able to do this equitably and on equal footing, and they shouldn't be penalized. I don't believe government's role is to penalize. I believe government's role is to reach out and give the helping hand to help lift people up if they can't do it on their own. But this whole pandemic has led to a lot of polarization, and there are a lot of really strong feelings about that. And the other day I was on the phone, and I was only on the phone because I'd moved a man from email. Communication by voice is sometimes a lot easier. And he was still screaming at me. And finally he said his truth. What he said was, "This is inconvenient for me." And I got it. This is so hard because we were talking about doing something not for the individual, but for the greater good. And sometimes people have a hard time seeing that. Sometimes it's hard to look past the fact that life is difficult right now. It's difficult for you, it's difficult for your family, to say, hey, we need to do the thing that is bigger and harder, but helps more of us. So all week, as I listen to people struggle with that, I keep thinking to myself, you need to be brave. You need to be brave. I am not going to lie, it sucks to have someone yelling at you and telling you that you're wrong when you know that in your heart what you're doing is not for you, it's not for one person, it's for everybody. It makes you tired and it makes you stressed. But if you can go back and tell yourself honestly, I'm doing this because I know it's right and I'm helping other people, then you need to stick with it. You can confront the scary and the uncomfortable because you have courage to persevere. And if you do that, you'll be causing a lot of good trouble, and you'll slowly be part of an effort to actually make the world a better place. Thanks.